My family banned me from the meeting for being too poor until they entered my empire. The invitation arrived on a rainy Thursday. An ivory cardstock with navy blue embossed letters announced the annual Ramirez family meeting, this time in Guadalajara. I turned it over in my hands, remembering the contemptuous looks and forced smiles of previous years. My name is Carla Ramirez, though in the business world, they know me as Camilla Monroy. 17 years ago, I was the disappointment, the dreamer who rejected a position at Ramirez Brothers to study event planning in Mexico City. The imprudent one, with no future. My cell phone lit up. It was my cousin Elisa. "Hello, Carla," she sang with a falsely cheerful tone. "Did you receive the invitation?" I did. "Well, just so you know, this year the meeting will be super exclusive." I couldn't help but notice a certain satisfaction in her voice when she pronounced exclusive. I knew her too well. I knew exactly what would come next. "Uncle Roberto thinks we should maintain a more elevated profile. You know, only those who truly bring prestige to the family," Elisa continued, letting the phrase hang in the air, like someone dripping poison drop by drop. "And I don't bring that prestige?" I asked directly, although I perfectly knew the answer. Elisa let out an uncomfortable little laugh. "Well, Carla, no offense. But you work organizing weddings and birthdays? The last time we asked, you were living in a rented apartment and driving a 10-year-old car. Uncle Roberto considers that the family image should be maintained at a certain level." I looked out the window of my office from the 27th floor of the building I had bought 3 years ago in the heart of the financial district. On my desk rested the Forbes magazine with my photo on the cover under the title, "The 30 Most Influential Businesswomen in Latin America." I smiled. "I perfectly understand, Elisa. Don't worry," I responded calmly. "You're not upset?" Her voice sounded disappointed. Did she expect drama, tears, perhaps pleas? "Not at all. Tell Uncle Roberto I understand his position." After hanging up, I took a deep breath and leaned back in my Italian leather chair. The Ramirez family, so proud of their construction company with a presence in 3 states, so convinced of their own importance. What they didn't know was that Eventos Monroy, my little wedding planning company, had only been the beginning. Under another name, I had built an entertainment and corporate tourism empire now worth more than $600 million. For 17 years, I had kept my success secret from my family. At first, it was out of wounded pride. Then it became a kind of private social experiment. I let them believe that their poor little Carla was still struggling to survive with her small events while my corporation bought hotels, convention centers, and launched an event planning application that revolutionized the market. My assistant Lucia entered the office, interrupting my thoughts. "Sorry to interrupt, Camila. The Ramirez Brothers group is online too. They say it's urgent." "About the purchase proposal for Las Americas Convention Center?" I held back a laugh. There was the perfect coincidence. A month ago, Ramirez Brothers had submitted an offer to acquire the Las Americas Convention Center without knowing that I was the owner through my corporation. A strategic convention center for their expansion, as I had heard. "Thank you, Lucia. I'll handle this call personally." I took a deep breath and pressed the line 2 button. "Good morning. This is Camilla Monroy." "Mrs. Monroy, this is Roberto Ramirez, president of Ramirez Brothers." My uncle's voice sounded tense. Professional. "We've sent a proposal for the acquisition of the Las Americas Convention Center and haven't received a response. It's an extremely important project for us." The same Uncle Roberto who had just banned me from the family meeting for not being at his level. "I understand your interest, Mr. Ramirez," I responded in a neutral tone. "We're evaluating several proposals. Your offer is interesting, but frankly, it's considerably below others we've received. We're willing to improve it." His voice denoted urgency. "Would it be possible to arrange a meeting?" I looked again at the invitation to the family meeting resting on my desk. An idea began to form in my mind. As it happens, I'll be in Guadalajara next weekend. Could we meet then? Perfect. How about at the Ramirez Brothers offices on Saturday at 10? Actually, I'd prefer it to be during the afternoon. At the Emperador Hotel. I'll be staying there. "The Emperador?" His voice faltered. "That's a very exclusive hotel." "I know," I replied. "Until Saturday, Mr. Ramirez." After hanging up, I couldn't contain my smile. The Emperador Hotel, the most luxurious in Guadalajara, also belonged to me. And on Saturday afternoon, right after his precious exclusive family meeting, Uncle Roberto would discover exactly who I really was. The trip to Guadalajara gave me time to think. As the plane crossed the Mexican sky, I remembered how it all began. After graduating, I started my small business organizing weddings and modest corporate events. My family made fun of me, especially when I rejected the generous position they offered me at the family construction company. An administrative assistant job, of course, because Ramirez women shouldn't make important decisions, according to my uncle. My first big opportunity came when I organized the wedding of a hotel businessman's daughter. He was so impressed that he hired me for all his corporate events. Shortly after, he offered me a partnership in a small boutique hotel. I accepted. I reinvested every peso earned. 3 years later, I bought his share. Then I acquired another hotel, and another. I created Monroy Hospitality Group under my second name, Camila, to separate my professional life from my family. The Ramirez family never really asked how I was doing at the annual meetings. They treated me with a mixture of pity and condescension. And you, Carla? Still with your little parties? Aunt Luciana would invariably ask while everyone laughed discreetly. Miss, we're landing in Guadalajara. Please adjust your seat. The flight attendant's voice brought me back to the present. My driver was waiting for me at the airport. Upon arriving at the Emperador Hotel, the manager came out personally to greet me. Mrs. Monroy, it's an honor to have you here, he said, bowing slightly. Your presidential suite is ready, as you requested. Several guests turned curious. A woman approached timidly. Excuse me, are you Camila Monroy? I saw your interview on CNN last week. I'm a great admirer of your work. I thanked her and signed an autograph, aware that some hotel staff were observing me with surprise. I had asked for absolute discretion about my visit, but it was inevitable that some would recognize me. From my suite, I called Lucia, my assistant in Mexico City. How's everything going? I asked. Perfect. I confirmed the meeting with Mr. Ramirez tomorrow at 5. I've prepared all the documentation about the convention center. She paused. Forbes just called. They want to do a special report on Monroy Hospitality's international expansion. Interesting coincidence, I smiled. Tell them I'll be available next week. After hanging up, I received a message from my cousin Diana, the only one in the family with whom I maintained any real contact. Also the only one who didn't work for Ramirez Brothers. Is it true you're not coming to the meeting? Uncle Roberto announced he'll announce important changes in the company. Everyone is very mysterious. I replied with an, I have different plans, but I'm in Guadalajara. We can see each other afterwards if you want. That night, while dining at the hotel restaurant, I noticed my Uncle Roberto entering with a pair of executives. He didn't see me, and I asked the waiter to move me to a more discreet table. I heard them talk about the importance of acquiring the Las Americas Convention Center for their new residential project. It's crucial to close this deal, my uncle was saying. I've investigated this Camila Monroy. She's quite young to manage such an empire, but she has powerful contacts. We must be careful. Have you considered that perhaps she doesn't want to sell? One of his companions responded. According to my sources, the center isn't officially for sale. Did you approach Monroy Hospitality? No, the other way around. My uncle tapped the table softly. Everything has a price. Tomorrow, I'll know exactly what this woman wants. I withdrew discreetly. Before they could see me at the elevator, I ran into my cousin Eduardo, Roberto's eldest son and current vice president of Ramirez Brothers. He turned pale upon seeing me. Carla, what are you doing here? Hello. Eduardo, I responded calmly. Work, like everyone else. I didn't know you frequented the Emperador. He quickly recovered, regaining his habitual air of superiority. We have an important business dinner tomorrow. It's the family meeting, but I suppose Elisa already informed you that this year it's more selective. Yes, she mentioned it to me. Don't worry, I perfectly understand. I smiled. I'm here for other matters. In fact, I have an important business meeting tomorrow. Eduardo let out a condescending little laugh. A wedding? Or perhaps a children's birthday? The elevator stopped at my floor. Before exiting, I responded, Actually, I'm meeting with the president of a construction company that wants to buy one of my properties. It's curious how the world works, isn't it? The door closed, leaving me to see his confused expression. He probably thought I was lying or exaggerating. Tomorrow, he would discover the truth. Back in my suite, I received another message from my cousin Diana. I just heard something very strange. Uncle Roberto is negotiating the purchase of a convention center with someone named Camila Monroy. Isn't that your second name? Is there any connection? I didn't respond. Diana had always been perceptive. I preferred to let events unfold naturally. That night, I could hardly sleep. Not from nerves, but because my mind kept reviewing the years of contempt, of hurtful comments, of being considered the black sheep of the Ramirez family simply for choosing my own path. I remembered the last family meeting I attended, 2 years ago, when my Aunt Luciana kindly offered me a job as a secretary in the company. Because clearly you're struggling financially, dear. The next morning, I observed from my window as members of my family arrived at the hotel's private room where they would celebrate their exclusive meeting. Uncle Roberto, Aunt Luciana, my cousins Eduardo, Elisa, and their respective spouses, all with their expensive outfits and airs of importance. My phone rang. It was Lucia. "Everything is ready for the 5 o'clock meeting," she informed me. "By the way, the financial results for the quarter are in. We've exceeded projections by 27%. Excellent. Also prepare the preliminary contract for the possible sale of the center. I want to see Roberto's face when he sees the conditions." At 4:30, I dressed in my best Armani suit and prepared for the encounter. Half an hour later, while the family meeting would be ending, I would be receiving Roberto Ramirez in the presidential suite to discuss business. The stage was perfectly set, and I, poor little Carla, who didn't reach the level to attend their precious family meeting, was about to reveal myself as Camilla Monroy, the woman who held the future of Ramirez brothers in her hands. 15 minutes before the meeting with my uncle, I received a call from Diana. "Carla, you need to come right now. Something's happening." Her voice sounded urgent, agitated. "What's going on?" I asked, finishing adjusting my diamond earrings. "Uncle Roberto just announced that Ramirez Brothers is on the verge of bankruptcy. They need to close an important deal or the company will collapse in less than 6 months. Everyone is in shock." My hand stopped midway. Bankruptcy. The powerful Ramirez brothers on the edge of collapse. The information hit me like a tsunami. I always thought my encounter with Roberto would be a moment of sweet revenge, of showing him that the niece he considered unworthy now had the power. I never imagined I would be negotiating with a desperate man. "Are you sure?" I asked, needing confirmation. "Completely. Eduardo is furious. He accuses his father of mismanagement. Apparently, they invested almost all their capital in a housing project that was canceled when the government found archaeological remains on the land. They're fighting among themselves. It's horrible, Carla." I breathed deeply, processing the information. The fall of Ramirez Brothers would affect dozens of employees, many of them simple people who had been working for the family for decades. People like Martina, the cook who always saved me cinnamon cookies when I was a little girl. Or Joaquin, the driver who taught me to drive in secret. "Thanks for letting me know, Diana. I'll call you later." My assistant knocked on the door just as I finished the call. "Mrs. Monroy, Mr. Ramirez is in the lobby. He arrived 15 minutes early. Have him come to the meeting room, Lucia, and please, let's adjust the agenda. I'll need more time." During those minutes alone, I remembered how I had built my empire. It hadn't been easy at first. I slept barely 4 hours a night, working tirelessly. There were moments when I almost broke from the pressure, from the loneliness of always being in command. I thought of Luis, my ex-fiancé, who left me claiming that my ambition was unfeminine. In the times I heard, "Are you sure you can handle this by yourself, honey? Or would you prefer I call your boss?" I especially remembered that occasion 6 years ago when I applied for a loan to acquire my first big hotel. The banker, a friend of my uncle, denied me credit, suggesting that perhaps I should consider a business more in line with my capabilities. 3 months later, I got financing with another bank and completed the acquisition. Today, that hotel is worth 5 times what I paid. Every obstacle made me stronger. Every no was fuel for my determination. The intercom rang. "Mr. Ramirez is ready," Lucia announced. "Show him in." My uncle entered with a firm step, although I noticed that the wrinkles on his face seemed deeper than the night before. He extended his hand professionally. "Mrs. Monroy, a pleasure to meet you. Roberto Ramirez." I observed him carefully. He didn't recognize me. The years, the dyed hair, the minor cosmetic surgeries, and above all, my uncle's total inability to conceive that his failed niece could be the powerful woman in front of him created a perfect disguise. "The pleasure is mine, Mr. Ramirez," I replied, shaking his hand. "Please, take a seat." For the next 20 minutes, Roberto presented his proposal to acquire the convention center, explaining the residential and commercial development plans they had for the area. He spoke with enthusiasm, but I detected a certain desperation in his eyes. It was the look of someone playing their last card. "As you can see, Mrs. Monroy, our offer is generous considering the current market." I reviewed the documents again. His offer was 35% below the real value of the property. "Mr. Ramirez, I'll be direct. Your proposal is significantly below the center's value. I understand you have big plans for the area, but I cannot accept an offer that devalues my property so much." I saw the color drain from his face. We could increase by an additional 5%, he offered. It's really the maximum we can stretch our budget. I'm sorry, but it's still insufficient. Roberto slightly loosened his tie, a gesture I had never seen him make. Mrs. Monroy, I'll be frank with you. This project is crucial for Ramirez Brothers. We're going through a complex financial moment. You mean you're on the verge of bankruptcy? His expression of surprise confirmed to me that Diana had not exaggerated. News flies in the business world, Mr. Ramirez, I added. He ran a hand through his graying hair, momentarily abandoning his facade of an imperturbable businessman. We're not bankrupt, he clarified with wounded pride. We're simply facing a period of restructuring after a major setback. I understand, I replied. However, that doesn't change the real value of the convention center. He leaned forward, almost pleading. Mrs. Monroy, this deal would mean the survival of a company with more than 40 years of trajectory. We have 87 employees who depend on us, entire families. Martina and her cinnamon cookies. Joaquin teaching me to drive. Families who weren't to blame for my uncle's arrogance. I propose something different, Mr. Ramirez, I finally said. I won't sell the convention center, but I'm willing to explore a partnership for its joint development. Hope briefly lit up his face. A partnership? That could interest us. With some conditions, of course, I continued. One of them is that I'd like to know more about the current structure of Ramirez Brothers. Perhaps you could invite me to that family meeting you're having right now. Roberto frowned, confused. Family meeting? How do you know? I know many things, Uncle Roberto. The silence that followed was absolute. I saw the pieces slowly falling into place in his mind. His eyes widened as recognition hit him. Carla, he finally whispered. It's you. I took off the designer glasses I had been wearing and looked at him directly. The same one who didn't reach the level to attend the family meeting. The same one you rejected for being too poor. Roberto Ramirez. The patriarch who never showed weakness seemed to have aged 10 years in seconds. This is impossible, he murmured. You are Camilla Monroy. Yes, or Carla Ramirez. Depends on who you ask. He rose abruptly, as if he needed to move to process what was happening. All this time it was you. The owner of the convention center, the owner of Monroy Hospitality, and of this hotel where you're celebrating your exclusive family meeting, I added. Ironic, isn't it? He slumped back into the chair, defeated. Why did you never say anything? All these years thinking you were struggling, failing, not being worthy of the Ramirez name, I completed. That was exactly what you wanted to believe, Uncle. What all of you needed to believe to validate your own choices. My phone rang. It was Diana again. I have to take this call, I told Roberto. Meanwhile, think about what you want to do. Can we continue this conversation with the whole family present? My cousin sounded distressed. Carla, things are getting out of control. Eduardo is accusing Roberto of fraud. He says he's been hiding the severity of the financial situation for years. Aunt Luciana is crying. It's chaos. Where are they now? Still in the Emperador room of the hotel. Nobody wants to leave to avoid making a public spectacle. But they're yelling at each other. I'm on my way, I responded. And Diana, prepare for a surprise. I hung up and looked at my uncle, who was still stunned. It seems your perfect family is falling apart. Uncle Roberto, what do you say we go together to see the spectacle? We walked in silence down the hotel corridor. Roberto a step behind me. I stopped in front of the double doors of the Emperador room. Ready to face the truth, Uncle? I asked. He breathed deeply, as if preparing for battle. Carla, before we go in, I need to know. Are you doing this for revenge? The question made me pause. Was it revenge? For years, I had fantasized about this moment, about seeing their faces when they discovered who I really was. But now, faced with the reality of a crumbling family, I don't know, Uncle. Maybe at first it was. Now I think it's about closing cycles and making intelligent business decisions. I nodded to the guards who were guarding the doors. They recognized me immediately as the hotel owner and allowed us to pass without questions. The chaos inside the room was palpable. Eduardo, standing, accusingly pointing at his father. Aunt Luciana sobbing in a corner while her husband tried to calm her. Elisa heatedly arguing with a man I recognized as the family accountant. Diana was the first to notice me. Carla! She exclaimed, running towards me. What are you doing here? The silence spread through the room like a wave. One by one, all faces turned toward us. Recognition, confusion, and in some cases, horror. Eduardo was the first to speak. "What is she doing here?" he asked, pointing at me. "I thought we had agreed that this year would be an exclusive meeting." Roberto cleared his throat, visibly uncomfortable. "Family, there's something you should know. Carla is Camilla Monroy." The silence that followed was absolute. I saw expressions that went from bewilderment to disbelief. "What nonsense are you saying, Dad?" Eduardo broke the silence. "Carla is who? The businesswoman?" "The same," I responded, advancing to the center of the room. "Camilla is my second name. Monroy was my maternal grandmother's last name. I've been operating under that identity professionally for more than a decade." Elisa let out a nervous laugh. "This is absurd. Carla organizes children's birthdays. She can't be Camilla." "Pardon me?" "Camilla is the owner of Monroy Hospitality Group," Roberto interrupted. "She owns this hotel, the Las Americas Convention Center, and probably many other properties we don't know about." The family accountant, an older man who had always treated me with condescension, looked at me with bulging eyes. "Monroy Hospitality is worth more than $600 million, he muttered, more to himself than to others. Diana approached me, taking my hands. "Why did you never say anything?" she asked softly. I looked around, at the familiar faces that now observed me as if I were a stranger. At first it was out of wounded pride. Then I suppose it was convenient for me to keep my professional and family lives separate. Eduardo, always the most combative, took a step toward me. "If this is true, if you really are her, you're behind the failed purchase of the convention center. You knew we needed it, and you used it to humiliate us." "I had no idea of your financial problems until 1 hour ago," I responded honestly. "You approached me with an offer, not the other way around. And I didn't find out it was you who were interested until a few days ago." The tension was palpable. 40 years of family dynamics, of established hierarchies, of judgments and prejudices were being questioned in an instant. Elisa, always concerned with appearances, seemed particularly affected. "All this time you've been pretending to be less than you are." "Why?" she asked with a trembling voice. "I wasn't pretending, Elisa. I simply let you see what you wanted to see. No one ever asked about my successes, only about my failures." Her face showed a flash of shame. For the first time, she seemed to really see me. The meeting continued for hours, transitioning from the initial shock to practical negotiations. Eventually, we agreed on the preliminary terms of the deal. I would be named co-president of the board along with Roberto, while Eduardo would maintain his position as director of operations, now reporting to both of us. When we finally left the room, it was already night. Martina was waiting outside, along with Joaquin and some other veteran employees. "Thank you, Miss Carla," Martina said, taking my hands. "I always knew you were special, since you were a child." Her words moved me more than any corporate validation. "Thank you, Martina, for the cookies, for the kindness, for believing in me when no one else did." That night, as I observed the lights of Guadalajara from my presidential suite, I reflected on the strange turn my life had taken. I had arrived seeking vindication, perhaps even revenge, and ended up assuming the responsibility of saving the family legacy that once rejected me. The phone rang. It was Roberto. "Can we talk for a moment?" he asked with a tired voice. "I'm in the lobby." "Come up," I said simply. Minutes later, Roberto was sitting across from me in the suite's living room. He looked exhausted, as if he had aged years in a single day. "I never thought we would come to this," he began, looking out the window at the illuminated city. "That the company I built with my own hands would be on the brink of collapse, and that my niece, whom I practically expelled from the family, would be the one to save it." He poured 2 glasses of whiskey from the minibar and offered me one. I accepted in silence. "Why did you do it, Carla? Why keep everything secret for so many years?" I took a sip before responding, savoring the question as much as the liquor. At first, it was wounded pride. "Uncle, when I rejected the position in the company, you told me I would regret it, that I would fail. I decided to prove to myself that you were wrong." Then I paused. I suppose it was convenient for me to keep my identities separate. Carla Ramirez could be free without the expectations of the last name. Roberto nodded slowly. "And while I was building a business empire for my children, you built a bigger one on your own," he said with bitter irony. Life has a strange sense of humor. Silence settled between us, comfortable and uncomfortable at the same time. "When was the moment when everything started going so well for you?" he finally asked. "About 7 years ago, when I bought my first big hotel. Before that, I was building slowly, learning, making mistakes like anyone else. But I always reinvested the profits. I always looked beyond. Roberto observed his whiskey as if he could find answers in the amber liquid. It was around that time that we started making bad decisions. Eduardo insisted on expanding aggressively, acquiring land at inflated prices. And I listened to him, wanting to believe that my son had the vision that I was already losing. I never set limits on him. His honesty surprised me. The Ramirez patriarch I knew would never admit mistakes. Why are you telling me this now? Because tomorrow we will sign an agreement that will give you partial control of Ramirez brothers. And I need you to understand how we got here, he responded with simplicity. And because, despite everything, your family. Those words, your family, awakened contradictory emotions in me. For years, I had tried to emotionally distance myself from the Ramirez family by building my identity as Camila Monroy, the self-sufficient businesswoman. But deep down, I was still Carla Ramirez, the girl who longed for her family's approval. Eduardo is not happy with the agreement, Roberto continued. He feels I'm delivering his inheritance to a stranger. I'm not a stranger. I'm his cousin. A cousin who has lived as a stranger for 17 years, he replied softly. I understand his resentment, though I don't share it. You see, I always believed Eduardo would be my ideal successor. Ambitious, determined, with Ramirez blood. But now I wonder if perhaps you were the one who should have led the company from the beginning. His words took me by surprise. I never expected to hear something like that from Roberto Ramirez. It's late for that, I responded. I have my own path now. And yet, here you are, ready to get involved in the family business, he pointed out. Why, Carla? Why not just let us fall? The question forced me to confront my own motivations. Why was I really helping to save Ramirez brothers? For Martina? For Joaquin? For the 87 employees and their families? For Diana, who had always treated me with respect? For my grandfather's legacy, who started it all with his own hands? I paused. And perhaps partly for myself, to close a cycle, to heal old wounds. Roberto got up and walked to the window again. Tomorrow we'll officially announce the agreement. There will be resistance, not just from Eduardo, some minority shareholders, suppliers, former executives who have grown under my leadership. It won't be easy. It never is, I replied. But I faced worse things. He turned to look at me, really look at me, perhaps for the first time. Your father would be proud of you, Carla. My brother always said you had his stubbornness and your mother's talent. The mention of my parents, who passed away when I was just 18, moved me. I had built my empire without them, often imagining what they would say if they could see me now. Thank you, Uncle, I replied simply. When Roberto left, I stayed contemplating the city lights. Tomorrow would begin a new chapter, not just for me, but for the entire Ramirez family. And for the first time in many years, I felt at peace with my last name. The next morning dawned clear and bright, as if presaging a new beginning. The Emperador Hotel's boardroom was prepared for the signing of the agreement. My legal team had worked all night on the final details of the contract. I arrived punctually at 10 a.m., dressed in a navy blue suit, the colors of Ramirez brothers, a small symbolic gesture that didn't go unnoticed by Roberto when he entered along with Eduardo and the rest of the family team. Ready? Roberto asked, extending his hand. Ready, I replied, shaking it firmly. The meeting formally began with the presentation of the terms of the agreement. My lawyer detailed the points. The acquisition of 40% of the shares by Monroy Hospitality, my appointment as co-president of the board, the labor guarantees for employees, and the educational scholarship program. Eduardo remained serious, occasionally intervening with technical questions. His initial resistance seemed to have transformed into a reluctant acceptance of reality. When the time came to sign, Roberto offered me the pen. Founders first, he said with a tired smile. I took the pen and signed as Carla Ramirez Monroy, officially uniting my two identities for the first time. While the others were signing, Diana approached discreetly. You know what's most ironic? She whispered. That Elisa had been bragging for months about meeting the famous Camila Monroy at a charity event last year. She said she had impressed her so much that she would surely invite her to collaborate on something important. I couldn't help but smile at the irony. I perfectly remembered that event, how Elisa had approached me without recognizing me, introducing herself as Elisa Ramirez, of the prestigious Ramirez family, and suggesting that perhaps she could guide me in some business aspects. Once the signatures were completed, Roberto stood for a toast. Today begins a new era for Ramirez brothers, he announced, An era of collaboration, renewal, and reconnection with our family roots. Officially welcome to the team, Carla. Those present applauded politely. Although I could feel the persistent tension in some faces, the path to complete acceptance would be long. After the ceremony, as the technical teams began to work on the details of the transition, I took a moment to walk through the hotel lobby. There, waiting patiently, were Martina, Joaquin, and a group of veteran employees of Ramirez Brothers. Martina stepped forward, holding a small box. "Miss Carla, we wanted to thank you for saving our jobs," she said with an emotional voice, "and to give you this that I've kept all these years." I opened the box to find a small photo album. On the first page was a photograph of me as a child along with my parents and my aunts and uncles, in front of the first Ramirez Brothers office. "So you remember that you've always been part of this family, even if some forgot it for a while," added Martina. Tears threatened to overflow my eyes, but I contained them. I hugged Martina, Joaquin, each of the employees who had come to show their support. "Thank you," I said sincerely. "I promise you that together we'll build a better future for Ramirez Brothers." That afternoon, when I finally returned to my suite to prepare my trip back to Mexico City, I found an envelope slipped under my door. Inside was an old photograph of my father and Roberto, very young, in front of their first construction project. On the back, in my uncle's unmistakable handwriting, was, "You were always more Ramirez than we wanted to acknowledge. Welcome home, niece." I sat on the edge of the bed, contemplating that faded photograph, that fragment of family history that had been denied to me for so long. The circle had closed. The girl who was once considered unworthy of the Ramirez name now had in her hands the power to redefine its legacy. And as I looked to the future, to the challenges and opportunities that awaited us, I knew with certainty that I had made the right decision. It wasn't about revenge or external validation. It was about honoring my roots while building my own path, about reconciling Carla Ramirez with Camila Monroy, about coming home on my own terms. A year has passed since that day in Guadalajara. Ramirez Brothers not only survived, but flourished under the new joint direction. The merger with Monroy Hospitality created synergies that no one had anticipated, opening markets and opportunities that have completely revitalized both companies. The Las Americas Convention Center project is in full construction, transforming into a multifunctional complex that will integrate housing, commerce, and recreational spaces. It has become the largest sustainable urban development project in the region, generating more than 500 direct jobs. Eduardo and I have developed a respectful professional relationship. Although still distant, time is slowly healing the old wounds. Elisa, surprisingly, has been the most enthusiastic about the changes, reinventing herself as the director of the new corporate social responsibility program. Roberto announced his partial retirement 3 months ago, although he continues to actively participate on the board. He confessed to me that for the first time in decades, he can sleep peacefully, knowing that the family legacy is in good hands. The scholarship program for employees' children has already benefited 38 students. Last week, during the award ceremony, Martina hugged me with tears in her eyes. Her granddaughter will be able to study medicine thanks to one of those scholarships. Diana and I have become inseparable. She now collaborates with me directing the family foundation we established to support young entrepreneurs who, like me years ago, have dreams but lack support. As for me, I continue dividing my time between my responsibilities in both companies. Although I increasingly feel more comfortable simply being Carla Ramirez without needing to hide behind another identity. This year's family meeting will be at my house in Mexico City. Everyone is invited, without exceptions, because I finally understood that true success is not measured by the size of your empire, but by your ability to build bridges where there were once walls. If you've made it this far and liked it, don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to our channel. Your support motivates us to bring more incredible stories. Thank you very much and have an excellent day.